So I want to again welcome everyone to what is now our second webinar. We definitely appreciate that so many people are attending from Canada, the U.S., Europe, and as we mentioned, as far as Asia and Australia. We're really excited about that. We encourage your questions, so please use the question and chat tools in the webinar console. I'll be monitoring them for Min, and I'll be collecting them for a question and answer discussion afterwards. A little bit about our speaker. Min Basadur began developing his insights about creative thinking and problem solving at Procter & Gamble more than 30 years ago. He received 3 U.S. patents and created a corporate-wide internal consulting practice. Following his award-winning doctoral research at the University of Cincinnati, Min became a professor of management in the Michael G. DeGroot School of Business at McMaster University. His first book, The Power of Innovation, became an instant CEO need to read. Min founded Basadur Applied Creativity in 1981 and has since traveled the world applying and teaching Simplexity thinking with many of the world's Fortune 500 companies. Now I'm going to turn it over to Min so he can take you on a guided tour of Simplexity thinking. Welcome, Min.
Okay, thanks very much, Bob, and really happy to have everybody here, and hope we can do some good things in the short time we've got. The goals of today, which Bob has transmitted to you, the first one is how innovation starts on the ground, not at 30,000 feet. That's a key. The innovation is a very interesting topic these days. Many books being written, many of them are what we call 30,000 feet. If you've read The Fifth Discipline, Good to Be Great, The Learning Organization, these are all very, very good things. The trouble about them is that they are not on the ground, and where we come in is how do we take those principles that have been enunciated in those books and make it happen right on the ground. We use the term called see how now. We can show you now things that can actually actualize those principles. And another way to think about it is we look upon creativity as something you do, something you do, not necessarily just talk about. So the do is very, very important. The killer app for innovation, if you put a collection of things together, you're going to get creativity and innovation. The knowledge, the process, the skills, the tools, and the style. We're going to go into that. Very simple process in a way, Simplexity thinking. We call it Simplexity because it's the idea of taking something complex and trying to make it simple. The idea is how do we make innovation and creativity, things we could do as kids, make it simple and not a mystery. That's where we're heading. And we actually have a structured 8-step process. It sounds strange to say putting structure into innovation and creativity. We think that's what really helps people to corral their innovative and thinking skills and in a way that makes sense and they can share with other people. Then we want to end up with some easy next steps that you could use to impact your organization quite quickly. Now, let's make a framework for understanding what we call the whole picture. How many of you have been in a meeting recently that you thought really almost a total waste of time? If I ask that question anywhere in the world, a whole bunch of hands go up. And when you ask people why, one of the reasons that comes up is nothing happened. There were no results. We were in there for a while and we went around in circles. It was frustrating, and at the end, nothing really happened, and nobody really knew what they were going to do and probably went to another meeting. So here's the way we look at it. If you're in a meeting, which is a bunch of people together, there should be a main reason for it, and that you're trying to accomplish something, solve a problem. If we're going to get some results, one of the things that we need is to have the right content in the room. And what that means is the what. And by that we mean the right people with the right information. We have to have that. Otherwise, we're in trouble. Now, often this doesn't happen. I'll give you a quick example. I was trying to help a company that was trying to bring innovation in their what they were making. They're making parts for cars. And so they said, we have a team working on it. And I said, well, where's the team? I said, over there. And the team was strictly made up of 11 engineers, the R&D people. There was nobody there from sales. There was nobody there no customers there. There were no people from marketing or the plant. And you can't really innovate something if you only have part of the knowledge that you need. Now, the next thing is we've got to have, for innovative results, we need a process. And the process is the how. Let me give you an example. Can you imagine trying to build a car by dumping all the parts on the floor and saying to the workers, go to it, guys. There's no assembly line. We would never do that. It would be a very bad car if we did not have some kind of an assembly line or a process to put the thing together. Now, that's the same thing when we're trying to deal with a problem. We need a process where we can all synergize together. Often in a meeting, you'll have the following. 10 people in a room, one person thinks we don't need the meeting. He could fix this right away. He wants to get out and take action. One person is there but not really sure why. Her boss said, sit in for me. Next, we have somebody who is interested in fact-finding. He's not happy unless we get the facts, no matter what it is. And I don't care if it takes 6 months, we're going to get down and find out some of the basic causes. Next, we have two people who love to define the problem before they go anywhere. They heard once upon a time that Einstein said, if I had an hour to save the world, I'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem. So they're going to be happy doing that. Then we have somebody who has ideas. And they love ideas, and they're throwing them out like crazy. They've heard that crazy ideas often lead to good results. Then we have a couple of people who are listening carefully and evaluating everything they hear and taking notes and explaining to people why this idea won't work. And then we have somebody in the room who loves to be devil's advocate. Is it possible we have a mess on our hands? We don't have any way to pull people together, all this good thinking in terms of some kind of process. That's one of the things we're doing today. Then we need some skills to make the process work. On an assembly line, we would want people trained on what the lights meant and what the other person was doing, teamwork. In thinking, we have some key skills as well, and thinking skills that can help us make the process work. There are times that we need to diverge together, converge together, and defer judgment. We'll get into that. Tools. On an assembly line, wrenches, hammers. In a problem-solving session, tools can be simple things like brainstorming. If you've ever been in a brainstorming session, you know that it's a fairly simple tool. But if I ask you, have you ever been in a bad brainstorming session, a lot of you would say yes. And that's because the tool is not used skillfully. So we have to do that. And finally, styles. This means that in the process, we all have our own individual likes and styles. And what we have to do is kind of work together and appreciate each other's styles. So if I'm one of those people who wants to implement, I need to appreciate the fact that I've got some people who want to conceptualize before we implement, and we help each other. Now, the innovation process has 4 styles, or 4 stages. One is called generating, getting things started, and that's the first. Finding new problems and opportunities to kickstart the process. Second, conceptualizing, conceiving, defining what the problem actually is, and putting some ideas together. Then we have to move into optimization. We've got to turn those abstract ideas into practical solutions and plans, and then we have to implement. We've got to get the new idea done. If those things are done continually, we're going to have an innovative person, an innovative team, an innovative organization. Now, of those 4, all of us have styles, and maybe if you had a look, you could say, which might be my top style, and are there some that I favor more than others? The generator style loves new problems and challenges, loves new perspectives, loves diverging, hates dropping options. They love keeping options open, and they're always looking for something new. Conceptualizer, problem definition is critical. They like to see the big picture. They like to understand, really like ideas, not that much concerned with moving to action, but boy, they like to understand and see the whole picture. Optimizers, these are people who love practical solutions. They want well-defined problems. They'll find out the basic causes, they'll solve them, and they'd rather evaluate rather than dream about what could be and other problems, etc. They don't like ambiguity. Finally, implementers. Many people are implementers. For them, the name of the game is action and results. Don't have to understand to get started. We can come back and fix it. They're quick to adapt as things change. Some people see them enthusiastic. Some people see them a little pushy. And they will bring people on board, but they, in general, will do it themselves if they have too much apathy. So you might look at which one might be your dominant, and we're all blends, but this might give you an idea of how the process works. Now, the 4 styles have 2 of 8 steps of the process, which we'll get into. Generating is what we call problem finding and fact finding, early. Conceptualizing includes problem definition and getting some ideas, which are like solutions. Then optimizers are people who will evaluate, select, understand, choose, and plan for implementation of a best solution. The implementers are people who will take that new solution or idea and they're going to somehow get it into action. They'll gain acceptance as needed to of other people buy-in, and you'll notice that the wheel is round, and as one action is taken, new opportunities come up. Now, here, as we said, the different styles favor different steps. Now, a generator, you'd be pushed in the upper direction, and these is a picture of how the different styles favor different parts of the process. Now, the skills. Let's talk about the skills that make the process work. There are basically 3 of them. I'm going to show you 2 of them right now, and these are very, very well known and simple. One is called diverging, and that means creating options without judgment or logic. This is where we could think of optional facts, optional problem definitions, optional solutions, and we relax. We don't worry about right or wrong. We're just opening up and using our imaginations, our ability to see many points of view to create options. After a while, we need to come back in and do some converging, especially if we're a team, and an individual too, but which ones are the better ones? We got to evaluate the options. We can't play with them forever. Clarify what they really mean, what are our criteria, and choose. I've worked with many, many different people and teams. I often thought that diverging was the problem, but converging is just as big a problem. Teams play a game, and it's called, let's get 6 months more data before we decide. And then they say, boy, if we only had 3 more months of data to decide. Everybody on the team is hoping to get transferred off the team before they decide. Both are vital. Let's practice diverging. What if I said to you, how might we increase the number of good new ideas offered by all the people in our organizations? And I said, diverge, jot down some ideas, and say you did. And maybe some of you are doing it right now. Well, after a while, I might say, well, let me hear one. Why don't you share one with me? And somebody could say, well, I got one. And he might say, I think we could probably give incentives to people to use part of their job to generate ideas. Now, I could say, yeah, that's kind of interesting, and we could do it by email, and there are many ways we could do that. We could use the internet. And then I also might say, a good idea, but. Ever heard that before? And I could rhyme off 15 or 20 reasons why it's a but. And for example, number 6 or 7. If it's so good, why hasn't somebody else thought of it? Now, I'm sure you've seen these killer phrases. You've endured them yourself. You may have even used them yourself. But what's happening? We are mixing divergent from convergent thinking. We put them together. Would we ever sit in a car, put one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake? We wouldn't do that. Doesn't make any sense. But we do it to each other continually, where one person is diverging, the other one is converging at the same time. It was never meant to be. But we've never been trained this way. In fact, we train the other way by true, false, multiple choice questioning and whatnot, where we try to find the flaw. So that's going to lead us to the 3rd skill. How do we prevent mixing divergent thought from convergent thought? This is the key. How do we know which one and synchronize with other people? It's called the deferral of judgment. You see that green line down the middle? Okay, deferral of judgment is a tremendous skill that helps you separate divergent thought from convergent thought in other people and in yourself. And if there's one skill you could learn that would serve you well your whole life, is that ability to see how people are thinking and not get in the way. Otherwise, we end up with very bad meetings where we say, yes, but, round in circles. And the person you said yes, but to not only gets cut off, but he also feels badly. And the way it works is he's probably going to wait for you to come up with an idea and do the same thing to you. And this is so simple. It saves so much time, and it's just a wonderful principle, and we use it throughout the entire process. Now, when we are converging, deferral of judgment comes in again. When we have a team of people who are trying to sift through a lot of solutions, ideas, facts, it's a three-stepper. One thing we do is we take converging dots and we actually reduce the big list down to a smaller number. Individually, we go up and we think about it and we put them up. Now, the second step is the next. We now talk about each one that got chosen as a possibility. We discuss to understand. We don't try to sell. We don't try to judge. We just want to understand, what did that idea really mean to you? And often very interesting things about, because we defer our judgment, we just want to understand. And sometimes you end up somebody saying, gee, I didn't know you meant that. I thought you meant something else. That gives me another idea. And sometimes some really interesting innovation happens right in that step. Finally, we go to the final one where we all make a decision by consensus. What are the most important? 2C45, facts, ideas, problem definitions. Very, very, we just published a major article on it. It's called Telescoping as a Tool. And we weave our way down and down and down, and we all understand what we just left. Now, this is where how might we comes in. This is a phrase that's really important. And when we reverse negative thinking, the way to do it is say, how might we? Somebody says, that idea would cost way too much. The answer is, great, how might we reduce the cost? Somebody says, we couldn't do it because a lot of people wouldn't buy into it. We'd say, how might we get a lot of people appreciating this idea a whole lot? And the trick is to turn it into, how might we? It's key. Sooner or later, your organization has a new language of innovation where people are talking about, how might we? The other thing is looking at problems in a very different way. Problems are opportunities for everybody. They're golden eggs. When I went to Japan and interviewed some of the top companies there, they have very disciplined processes for teaching their people, training them that finding problems is a wonderful thing. Be dissatisfied with your job. Be dissatisfied with our products, and see them as golden eggs, and there's something we can do something about to make things better or innovative. Now, the process, the how. Let's look at the how. It's an 8-step process, as you can see, and it probably will look very, very abstract to you, and let's leave it that way for now, and let's start looking at the individual pieces. Here's an incomplete process. Somebody once said, and many people have thought, it's so simple. You put a problem out and get people to diverge and converge, you get a solution, and that's it. Have you ever had a job where you came in every day and your boss said, here's your problem, solve it, give me the solution at the end of the day, come back tomorrow? Wouldn't that be a nice kind of job to have? Those don't exist because this is problem solving only. And in the creative process, before you do problem solving, you have to do problem finding. Somebody's got to find them. Where do they come from? And finding good ones becomes very, very key, because we can waste a lot of time on problems that are inconsequential. Well, here's where we go. The first phase is really discovering a good problem, looking out for problems to solve. What are our customers wanting these days? What are our employees doing? How do we make our group look really, really good and do something really, really good for the organization? They're looking for problems that might be good to solve. Then we turn those problems into solutions. Now, those are two different kinds of creativity. In the dissertation I did at the University of Cincinnati, one of my major discoveries was that people can have these skills in different parts of the process and different likes for different parts of the process. It's not all the same. Well, this is still not complete. Unless we put that solution to action, it's still incomplete. So this is the way it looks. We've got to get creative about turning that solution into action. These are three different kinds of creativity that are blended in the whole process. Well, what now? Well, every time you take action, guess what happens? We cause new problems. The automobile was a great solution to a problem of transportation, but do we not now have 15, 20, or 30 new problems to solve because of the automobile? Of course we do. So here's how it looks. That action leads us up into new problems. And this is what we call progress. New things happen, and new triggers new opportunities and problems to be solving. And therefore, the process is circular. A good organization, individual, team is continually formulating new problems to be solved, formulating new solutions, and implementing those solutions, and it goes around. And they are continually making change. They're not being changed. They are making change themselves. And it's pretty exhilarating when you are causing change to happen and taking control of your own life or your own job. If we put the skills and the process together, then we have this. The divergent and convergent skills are used in every step. Excuse me for that, jumping ahead. I think it was something from outer space that did that. Now, if you look at this, there are many things to see, but one of them is to notice that we have diverging and converging in every single step of this process. And we diverge on finding problems and picking. We diverge on facts and picking. Problem definition has two. It's so important that we do it twice, and I'll be coming to that. This is where we get into the how might we stage, and we look at many, many different how might we's, and we try to define the problem in a really, really innovative way. Ideas are solutions. Now we can move into solutions. That's the yellow light part. The front part, which was red, was sort of saying, hey, let's really make sure we got a good problem here before we jump too fast and solve it. These two here, 4 and 5, getting ideas and evaluating and selecting them very carefully. The divergence in step 5 is criteria. By what criteria might we evaluate these ideas? Now we move into the green zone, which is go, go, go. We've got to get this implemented, and we'll look at what is involved in that. There's a divergence in every step. Getting a plan, exactly what are we going to do to get this idea implemented? Getting buy-in from other people if needed, and taking action to actually get it done, jumping off the diving board, and then we go around again. We could go around several times to make it better and better. We can even use the wheel to go backwards if we need to. We might have an idea. We say, what problem is that idea going to solve? And we can work backwards into problem definition, so we can move around any way we like in this wheel. Let's learn how to use it. So remember now, generating is in the front end, conceptualizing is in the second, optimizing is in the third, implementing is in the other, and we'll go ahead now and see what these things really mean. Let's take the first step, problem finding. Well, if you ask a bunch of people to look at this and say what might be the most difficult thing in here, a lot of people will pick number one, like who in the heck wants to look for problems, because we tend to think problems are kind of negative. And in fact, for us, problem finding is not negative at all. It is looking for good opportunities to make changes. Problems can be stated in many, many ways. Opportunities, goals that we have to meet, difficulties we're having. So we call them fuzzy situations. It's important to find them, whether we like them or we don't like them. And defer judgment a bit, they might be a lot better than we think. But if we don't get out there and start looking, then we have nothing really to be innovative about. Good organizations foster problem finding as really, really being critical. Let me give you some examples. When I went to Japan, I talked to the Toshiba Corporation, their R&D people, because my background was R&D. They said one of the ways we're different from you in the West is we hire scientists and engineers new, just like you do, but we don't put them into R&D for the first 2 years. I wonder if any of you could be guessing what part of the company they put them into for the first start of their lives. And the answer is they put them into sales. Why sales? They said, we want our new people to come in knowing that innovation starts with problem finding. We want our people to learn the customer's problems. What problems do our customers have? We don't want them coming in here to think we're going to hand them problems to solve. We want them to find out that we want them to find problems to solve. Now, if you find a problem that a customer has, or a potential customer, you can solve it, and guess what that is? It's a new product or a new service. So very much inculcated to problem finding being really important. Nippon Denso, one of 5 major top-notch employee suggestion system companies in Japan. And they're all very similar in that they promote very much on the first day on the job to be a good employee. We want you to be a participant in solving important problems, finding them, solving them, implementing them, and we want you to look upon problems as golden eggs. It's good for you to find things that need attention. And we give you credit for finding them, solving them, and implementing. It's not dropping something into a box. So they get this whole notion of how might we going, and people like the change and like making change. Apple, when you go into a fundamental Apple store, say in California, maybe the base, you're going to go in and you're going to ask for help with problems you've got. But what the Apple employees do is they listen to additional problems you might not even know you're saying, and they start collecting those problems. Then they ship them back, and these become new problems to solve, which become new products that we buy from Apple about a year later, and it's solving a problem we didn't even know we had, but they are well schooled in problem finding. If there's any Chinese people, are there any Chinese people in the room, and you look at this, you'll say, yep, that's crisis, and it is the symbol. And the beauty of this is it has a lot to do with problem finding. You'll notice that this symbol has actually two symbols within it. The left one is the symbol for danger, and the right one is the symbol for opportunity. And put together, it becomes crisis, one way or the other, going in or coming out. What does this mean? Well, in the Chinese language, these have come together after 5,000 years, and a good leader is someone, when there is a crisis, can spot the opportunity. There's always some kind of opportunity in that crisis, and will lead people to capitalize on it. No matter how bad the problem is that you're facing or coming up with, there's got to be some good things about it. If you try, you can find it. The other part is when people are in a state of emotion, danger, they are willing to do something differently. They may linger forever, but when there's danger there, they're ready to participate in change. So a good leader is one who can recognize the opportunity, explain it to people, and mobilize them to move forward and do something very, very well that came out of that problem. Some of you may remember the Tylenol example of about 15 years ago, where there were 9 people who died after consuming a tablet of Tylenol. The company did a great job of not only handling that problem, reassuring people, but turning that situation into all the new difficult foolproof packaging we have to work through when we use tablets. And they went to capsules as well, so they turned it into an opportunity. As an individual, there are some people who say, well, I don't have any problems. Well, good for you. The problem is you're either dead or you just haven't kind of figured out how to do it. So we use checklists like the following. Trying to think of some problems every day? Jot them down. How much you like to improve. You can ask yourself questions and maybe ask other people questions about looking for problems, not solutions. Great way to start your day. Okay, now we move into fact-finding. We picked a problem. We got to get some facts about it, and facts are really important, and many people dismiss the value of facts. They're so eager to move ahead. We like to defer judgment. Before we jump ahead, let's take some time to get facts. Now, there are many fact-finding ways. When people do ethnography, that's fact-finding, finding out what people are doing. Market research is in a great need for gathering information about consumers. Design research, that's the same thing, gathering information about not solutions, but finding out what people are doing, what problems there might be. There are questioning techniques that can be used generically, where you can ask people questions and ask questions of each other, trying to gather and explore more and understand more about the problem and to clarify. Fact-finding skills include asking good questions, open-ended, encouraging a lot of answers, getting people to go beyond yes or no. The answers need to be in whole thoughts, simple, concise. What do I mean by whole thoughts? So I say to a person, I say, so tell me something about your challenge. And he says, money. Okay, that's one word. And so I say, could you tell me a little more? And he says, not enough money. Well, that's a little more. could you just tell me a little bit more? And he says, my boss doesn't like my project and he refuses to give me the funding I need. That's a whole thought and a totally different thing, okay? Also, a fact could be somebody says morale is low. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if he says, I, Fred, think morale is low, that's a fact. The fact is that Fred thinks that morale is low. So we capture those in terms of I think, we believe. We don't stop and argue about it. We just put it down. And finally, checking for understanding, clarifying. Problem definition. Okay, this is really the name of the game where we twist everything around. And it's a linchpin to ideas and solutions. Defining problems is very hard for most of us. We have been brought up in a world of solutions. Knock on your next door neighbor's door and you say, I got a problem. He will supply you with at least 3 or 4 solutions immediately. This happened to me and I did this, I did that. We don't take the time to really understand the problem or define it. And the key is, how might we? So let's see, we've got some facts. We're a Caribbean company, government, and we got some hurricanes and we gather a huge amount of facts. Look at these facts, nice and clear. Every one of this nice and clear, a complete thought. Everything is boiled down to these facts. Well, so what now? Well, now we have to turn these into how might we challenges. You might try this yourself, but give you an example. I look at number 3. How might we warn people without using language? I look at number 1. How might we help people get to the shelters faster? Number 2, how might we save more lives during hurricanes? How might we keep people more alert at hurricanes? How might we get newspapers and media to help us engage people in finding ways to save their lives? How might we hurricane-proof our buildings? These are how might we's that we use imaginatively to turn these facts into not solutions but challenges. Always starting with how might we. So the key is we're not looking for solutions, we're looking for challenges first. Now, once we got a bunch of challenges, we go into problem definition part 2. And this is where we clarify further. Maybe the challenge sounds good, but maybe it could be even better than we have. And this is called the why, what, stopping analysis. We take a challenge and we can ask why of it, or we can say what's stopping of it. Now, the answer comes from whoever has the problem, and we use a complete simple statement, aha, and then we take that and transform the answer to another how might we, either broader or narrower, one or the other. Here's an example. When I was working at Procter & Gamble, I learned a tremendous amount. A wonderful company, learned a great deal, and I've learned everywhere else, but this was a tremendous learning. We were confronted with a new bar introduction called Irish Spring. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this product. Unfortunately for us, Colgate introduced it rather than us, and Colgate surprised everybody with this product. And it became a big winner. It had green stripes. If you look carefully, it's got green stripes. And that was new. Nobody had ever made a stripe bar before. And you might remember a guy with a knife stroking the bar to show you indeed on television there were stripes in this bar. The next thing was they showed a commercial where there would be somebody taking a shower in the middle of the meadow with refreshment all around them. Dew on the grass, mountains up here, rivers up here, clouds up there, sun up there, everything very refreshing. And the story was if you use this green stripe bar, you would feel more refreshed. That caught on really, really well. And the market share went up for them and the market share went down for us. P&G put a team together and said, we got to solve this problem. The team called me about 6 months later and said, we're really in bad trouble. We feel very poorly about ourselves, and we've not been able to really get where we want to go. And I said, tell me more about it. And they said, well, we have made 6 outstanding green stripe bars in the last 6 months. And every one we make, we compare it to Irish Spring in a blind test with consumers. We come out equal. And in our company, as you know, we said the rule is that unless you can show a blind test winner, you've got an advantage, you can't go to market. We don't want to be me too. And so we said, we keep on trying this and it doesn't work for us. Now, based on what he said, intuitively, what they had been doing was how might we make a better green stripe bar over and over again, trying real hard. So we had a session, and it was divided into the morning session being, let's look at our problem definition. And this afternoon being, why don't we get some solutions? And here's what happened. When I asked the question why of the team, why would we want to make a better Green Stripe bar? The answer was, we've lost market share, and that came to how might we regain market share. Okay, so those are two legitimate challenges. My job is to go back to the beginning and say, why else would we want to make a better Green Stripe bar? It was hard for the team to figure out why else. And it took a while, and I was hoping that I might help, and I knew nothing. I said, well, what if we look at it from somebody else's perspective? What about a user of bars? Why would we want to make a better Green Stripe bar? Somebody said, we'd like to make them feel more refreshed. And that came to, how about we make a more refreshing bar? Now, that was a major out-of-the-box aha for this team. And they chose the middle one. Now, the middle one, if you'll notice, has more options than the bottom one. And they chose it because it opens them up. But which one has the most options? The top one. But they didn't choose it because it had way too many options. So they picked the more refreshing bar, and they felt very, very good about having redefined their problem in such a way that opened them up. If you ever want to get out of the box, this is where it happens. Now, most people don't do this. They jump from 1 to 8. Fuzzy situation, got this problem, let's go into action. They went back and forth 6 times, 1 a month, 1 a month. When you use the process, we say, wait, defer judgment. Let's not assume we know what the problem actually is. Let's do some fact-finding, and then let's do some problem definition. And we come around this way, we save a great amount of time, but we have to hold ourselves back because we think so often into solutions. This is a major skill. It's the 4th skill. Don't jump from 1 to 8, go 1 through 8. You might find that out, by the way, the next meeting you're in, where people just jump immediately to solution. Just got to slow it down a little bit. Now we get into ideas. Ideas are, we get our imagination going on any ideas we can think of that just might solve this, how might we, that we got. The rules are simple. Divergent, no logic. As soon as you start using logic, you are judging. You're on the other side, converging. Relax. Go for quantity. 50 ideas is better than 20. You'll find better ones. Radical ideas can lead to more ideas. And finally, at the bottom, build, build, build on other people's. It's like going on a flying carpet. You're being helped. Build on other people's ideas. Well, here's what happened in the coast problem, the Irish Spring problem. We generated about 200 ideas for how might we make a more refreshing bar. When we converged, the 2 best ideas were somebody said, I think of the beach for refreshment. White sand, white clouds, blue sky, breezes blowing. Somebody else says, I think of going to the coast. And that's exactly how that bar was invented that day. It's blue and swirly white, depicting the beach, and it did beat Irish Spring finally in one blind test, which is all they needed to go to market. Now, if you think about it, how long did that solution take? It was a half a day. But what took 6 months was defining the problem. Now, shortly thereafter, here's the fun part. Within a month, Irish Spring had introduced a blue-striped Irish Spring. Shield, Lever Brothers Shield came out with several different blue and green striped versions of a refreshment bar. Coast later on came up with a Sunburst Coast. You can go into any drugstore in North America and you'll find Walgreens green and blue stripes. Here is Zest, which is a P&G product, but it's got Ocean Energy blue and it's got Rainforest Falls green stripes. Okay, so this is a huge market now that was all triggered by that incident so many years ago. Now we evaluate and select and pick our best ideas, and for that we need criteria. And by what criteria might we evaluate our selected ideas? We have to agree on what we're really looking for. Here are some criteria. Cost, acceptability to others, impact on trust, simplicity, time to implement. These are the criteria we dream up, and then we choose the best ones to evaluate our fledgling ideas. And finally, we'll end up with 1 or 2 or 3 good solutions we want to implement. Let's just say we come up with 1. If we don't have any, we'll just go back and do it again. The whole wheel will come through again. But usually we're going to have 2 or 3 good ones. Well, let's do, each one of them needs an action plan. Here's the problem. How do we get from here to action? The name of the game is action. What we know about people is we're all the same. We tend to procrastinate. we find all kinds of reasons to do other stuff, then do something new and implement even when we know what it is. The trick becomes to make a plan which is going to vault us up to the action off the diving board. Here's kind of things get in the way. Ever heard these? I'm too busy right now. People say, I ran into a roadblock and I don't think people like it. Instead of saying, how do I get around the roadblock? Some people say, gee, if this thing works, I'll have more work to do than I do now. I'll put it aside. And people don't know where to start. So the question becomes, how do we overcome these natural barriers we have to go ahead and do something new? So these are ways to build commitment. How do we commit ourselves that we're going to take action no matter what? The first thing is we diverge on what steps might we take, little steps we might take to implement the solution, get the ball rolling. One of the things we know about ourselves is we have a desire for closure. And that is once we get something started, we do want to get it finished. And what we want to do is not leave a meeting without an action plan. What's going to be done, how, who, when, and where to implement this good idea. What we like to have people do is don't pick the best idea, step, put the easiest one in, one that we're sure to do, a no-brainer. Then we put how would you do it and exactly who. We can't put down the department or what, who, Alice, Fred, when and where. The more precise we make that, the far more likely we are to actually do it because we have the vision in our minds, like a golfer who's got a vision of that ball going in the hole. Now what can happen is we discover, aha, something should have happened before. Then we put it up there and then we move it sideways. And we do that as often as can, and often we'll find what's next. Put it here, move it sideways. Exactly, exactly. Once that's nailed down, especially at the end of the meeting, we know exactly who's going to do what and when and where, and we are able to make that happen by actually asking each other, how's it going, and having another meeting to schedule it. Now, once we got that down, the next one is gaining acceptance. Now, this step may not be needed. Some of you probably will understand this right off the bat. If you involve the people in the first 3 or 4 or 5 steps, you won't need this step. And this is a secret to innovative management. Being a process leader, a new age manager, is to bring in people before you know the solution and share the problem and work it through. The problem, it'll be a better solution, and you've got everybody engaged to want to make it happen. But again, say there's somebody you haven't. Here we got to think about the benefits. Here's the solution. By the way, don't wing it. You got all kinds of, I know what I'll do. I'll wing it. Don't wing it. Do some time ahead of time, thinking about it. What's the solution? Who am I selling it to, the listener? Is this a solution that might help the problem of a problem the solution's got? That'd be nice. And what do I want him to do? Then think of benefits. Why should it be done? Now, not benefits to you, but benefits to him or her or the organization. So you got to list those. What should be done? What should be done? What are the benefits? What's the benefits for doing it? And how much each benefit be understood? So the benefits part is key. And finally, what concerns might this person have? And work on these ahead of time. If he says it would probably get a lot of flack from accounting, you might say, well, I've talked to 3 people in accounting and they actually like it. So you show them how they could be overcome. So the benefits, and the benefits not to you, but the benefits to the other person. And then finally, action. This is the name of the game. If this doesn't happen, all of this work was for naught. And unless you're taking action, you're not being creative. Things aren't rolling. It's like being on the diving board and jumping in. The beautiful thing is if you take action on this solution, you're going to get a big aha. It's going to feel like coming together. It's like Keats once said, the poet, nothing is real until it's experienced. You don't experience this process until you actually do it. And then good things will happen. It may not solve everything. It might be a start. You may have to go around the wheel several times. But you've jostled everything. You're going to help things get going. And you might be surprised at the number of people who are probably going to help you and want to make it work if you take the lead. So that's our process as a whole. And as best as I could do to get it across in this short period of time. And I'm going to ask Bob to tune in right now with the next steps and also maybe some of the questions that you've come up with. So thank you much for listening and watching.
Man, that was great. Thank you very much. Even I think I learned a couple new things today, and I've been exposed to this for a long time. Just a quick brief before I get into some questions. We have a few good questions here, and certainly encourage everyone to keep going with some questions. First thing I want to do from a housekeeping standpoint, I know I mentioned it earlier, but we will be sending everybody who attended and registered will be getting an email with a link. So this we recorded the webinar, so you will get that. You can share it with your colleagues. In addition, those of you who attended, who actually are on this right now listening to me talk, will also be emailed the slides. We're going to send it in a PDF version, so no need to worry. A number of you have asked me that question over the course of this webinar, so I just wanted to mention that again. If anybody wants to give us a shout, we're happy to provide a no-cost 30-minute phone consultation. Our number there is 905-690-4903. Both men and I are around over the next little while. Happy to chat about your own maybe personal situation or an organizational situation that you have, and no charge. Email is another option. I've got that. Our email is at the bottom of the slide. We are we run 3 to 4 open workshops a year, mostly at our location here outside of Toronto. Our next one is coming up. I know it's soon, July 7th and 9th. I believe we'll be scheduling another one in October, but we give you a pretty brief link here, basadur.com/July workshop. Feel free to click on that. We got all the information there. Our next webinar is scheduled for August 12th at noon, and I think we're going to stick with that. The idea being here, we want to take you a little bit on a journey. We're going to get into a little more detail around step one, which innovation starts with the problem, asking the right questions in a solution-driven world. We're going to sort of dig in a little deeper around problem finding. We touched on it in this webinar, but we're going to do a little more work and probably give you a few more specific examples of some of the clients we work with and situations we've dealt with. So that's it for next steps. Regarding some questions, I see we got a few more coming in here, but here's the one that came in fairly early on. We had the slide when we talked about the innovative results equation. What do you mean by innovative?
Okay, a very good question. You could ask that to 10 different people and get 10 different answers. And same thing about creativity. What do you mean about creativity? So the question, if you were here, I'd ask you, what does it mean to you? If a company calls up and says, we need a lot of innovation, so we'll say, well, could we come in and talk? Because we have something we call pre-consult, which is we don't assume we know. We come in and ask the customer, potential customer, what are some of the problems you're trying to solve that you think innovation is needed? And we do steps 1, 2, and 3 together with a small group, trying to define the problem. What are you after? And we get challenges. They'll say, we do fact-finding, problem definition. You get all kinds of challenges coming out that they think innovation would solve. When you ask them to pick the challenges, they have now discovered what they meant by innovation, and we've discovered what they meant by innovation, and then we can be much more clear on what is it we're trying to do. It might end up being something, how might we get more new products commercialized each year? It might be, how might we get everyone in the company willing to get engaged? It might mean many things, depending on if we don't assume we know what it means. If we get people in a room and we say, look, let's have a little exercise. I want you to think about an animal that illustrates innovation to you. And everybody writes down the animal, and then we ask people to share it. We get everything. We get about 16 to 20 different things. Somebody says, I took a raccoon because they're very innovative problem solvers. Somebody says, I picked a peacock because they have so many different colors. Somebody says, I picked a hippopotamus because that hippopotamus can float any level he wants, very flexible. Okay, so creativity or innovation, these are words that exist in people's minds. And for us, one of the, we don't, by the way, don't distinguish between the two. One of the things that we do is help people use their innovative abilities to get what they want. Now, for us, one of the key things is implemented change. If you've been able to go around that wheel and implement a solution to a problem that you had, you are innovating or you are being creative. So that's my answer to the question is don't worry so much about it. But for us, it's really the biggest thing is it's a process. I guess I left the most important thing. People who study innovation will come up with, we are studying innovative people, okay? We are studying innovative factors that make people innovative, incentive systems. Other people say, well, we're trying to figure out if there's a way we can test people to see if they're innovative or not. There are other people like myself who say we treat it as a process. Innovation is a process. And I've taken you through the process today.
We got several more here, so I'm going to cut you off a little bit because we got a lot. No, it's okay. We got a lot of great questions, so I want to try to get to as many of them as possible. A question is, how far ahead of time you're running a session do you recommend that you would use the problem-solving styles instrument before conducting a process yourself? How far in advance?
One thing, it's really helpful if people will do that styles inventory before they come in. And I don't think it matters that much whether it's right before or a week before. I guess if it's too far away, they might forget. But we ask them to print it out and bring it in with them. And we'll also say there's one more thing we want you to do, is we want you to answer a couple of fact-finding questions about the problem before you come on in. And they bring those in as well. Now we got people primed when they come in. And what we do is we use that immediately to train people quickly, or as much time we got is that we are going to work together. And we get people to share their different problem-solving styles and what they mean. And there's a great amount of liking for them. They get the process right away, and they all feel proud of where they are. So what you want to do is just try to make that happen somehow. I guess the time beforehand is really up to you, but you might want to follow up and encourage people. Did you get the request to do it? Please do it quickly and bring it in.
Another one here is, and we'll talk briefly here, but maybe talk a little bit about the process in strategic planning.
Oh, well, this is a strategic planning process. So if people say we want a strategic plan, this is probably the most innovative thing that they should be doing. Strategic planning is heavy duty, the front part, which is trying to figure out where are we going, what new problems are here with us, what are we trying to do, what are new things ahead of us. The SWOT analysis becomes fact-finding. Financial analysis becomes fact-finding. These are all facts that we've decided that we want to have a retreat and we want to do some strategic planning. That's the first part, is to do the fact-finding questions, and we start pinpointing what are the most important pieces of information we've got about us. And then they start turning into how might we's. And those how might we's start becoming the goals. They might start becoming the priorities. They might be becoming the objectives. But we start generating what are the right questions we should be asking. A board of directors should not be rubber stamping anything. They should be, and neither should the CEO be asking them to. You got to come up with looking at the future, what are the right problems for us to be working on. We make a challenge map of those so they can see how they all fit together. The more tactical at the bottom, the more broad at the top, mission and vision at the top, and you see it in front of you. And then you start cherry picking what are the actions we're going to take to implement those. We don't put them on a shelf, and because McKinsey gave them to us, we start working right around the wheel. Pick what are we doing about this goal? What are we doing about that goal? And you go. So it's a planning device which puts long term there, but also the short term at the more tactical level.
That's great, man. I just want to add one more thing. We will be doing a little bit of. We've developed a couple of e-resources around strategic planning, and we will be doing a future webinar where we probably do it specifically around strategic planning. So I'm going to move on to the next.
It's one of the most misunderstood words in the world, strategic planning, and everybody seems to want it, but nobody seems to really understand it. And it can be made very, very simple. The webinar is going to be called Strategic Planning Made Simple.
And another question that came in, and just a quick example on how to converge and diverge on an action plan. I think we talked a little bit about it, but I think a little bit more of an example might help here. Just a
very
quick
good.
example.
So we got the solution we want to implement, and then the leader can say, what specific little steps might we take to get this solution implemented? And judgment on the floor, simple stuff. Stop on the drugstore on the way and pick up this. Send an email to 5 people. Share this idea with my boss tomorrow. Call 5 people and ask them what they think about the problem. Share the idea with the union steward. Something simple as possible, and you'll get a bunch of stuff down. Now let's look at them and give everybody a magic converging dot. It's amazing what people will do. What's the best? What's the one we should start with? Not the best one, the one we should start with. Everybody goes up. They put their dots up, and say we get 3 or 4 picked. Now we do the second part of telescoping. Why did you pick that? How many people picked this one and why? How many people picked this one and why? How many people picked this one and why? And they explain. And now the leader says, what would be the best first one we might start with? And everybody will pick the easiest one after that convergence, and you pop it in as the first one down on the list, and you start working. What is that step? You know, we put that step down. Go to the drugstore and buy some decks of cards or something, and then the next one, how? Exactly how? And make it even more specific. And then who's going to do it by when and where? And then that will trigger something before, something after, and you keep on doing that.
I've got a couple more quick ones, and we don't run out of time here, but another one came in. How do you overcome skepticism to divergence, where some people think that might be a waste of time?
Yeah, this is, again, it requires a little bit of training up front. And by the way, the profile helps an awful lot. But I can do it very, very quickly. You're trying to show, I will do something like this. Okay, people, I'm glad you came here today. Now, can we do a shortcut? Can somebody come up with you've been thinking about this, come up with an idea and just share it with me. So the person does, and he says, well, we should do so-and-so. And I say immediately, yeah, but, and I'll pick out 3 different things that would just kill that idea. This, that, and the other thing. Everybody's jaw drops. I say, okay, anybody in the room, and I mean any skeptics, who thinks that that was a good idea, step forward. Does anybody here, and I show them the killer phrases, does anybody here really want to ask these kinds of questions? Do you see how this has knocked us down? So one of the rules today, guys and girls, diverge first, converge second. That works. Nobody wants to be the person who's the killer phrase artist, but you have to make the ground rules first. And we have, you can use slides and you can use posters, but those are the rules. That's how we do this. Otherwise, this process is not going to work. Your behavior is going to be what works. Now, you want to stop us? You can if you want, but we don't want you to.
I got 2 more. One is a quick one. This is there an optimal size for a Simplexity session? And the second one, and we don't have a lot of time here, but the second one is kind of working backwards. How do you use the process for a technology, for example, a technology type project where you may have a solution, but you're looking for problems? How do you get started? So
yeah, okay.
Quickly on the optimal size, and
the
then
optimal size generally depends on what you're trying to do. If the problem is very complex, it needs problem definition greatly, you want to use a smaller group because you got to give people, it's maybe 7, 8, 9. You want to be inclusive but not large. If it's a relatively straightforward problem where we kind of know what the definition is, we're going to get there quickly, and you don't want to prejudge that, is let's just generate a bunch of ideas. It could be 25, 30 people because all we're really doing is generating solutions to something that we've already thought out. The second one, I do a lot of work with inventors in our School of Engineering. A lot of people do show up with, I got an idea and I don't know what to do with it. And what we try hard to do them is move them backwards and say, you've got an idea, and try to show it. They got to know the wheel. They've got to, and that profile does it. Say, we've got to know what problem is this solving for anybody important. Who's your customers and what's the problem definition? So we move them backwards, and usually you find out that their solution might be good, but for a much bigger problem and a much more important problem than they thought. But you just move backwards. It requires some facilitation, and somebody moves you back. But if they know the wheel, they'll through that profile, they'll understand how to go back.
Well, that's great, man. I think we're out of time. I really appreciate everybody tuning in, and I encourage you. I mean, we covered just a few questions. I'm sure there are plenty more.
Bob, I
Email
could have
us, give
said,
us a call.
you
Uh,
could have asked the question, what problem is this solution going to solve? That's one direct question you could do. It moves you back. Sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, really appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully, we'll hear from some of you, and really thank everyone for the great questions. And stay tuned for an email from me, and with the link to this archived, as well as the PDF of all the slides. So until from Min and I, have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you.